Welcome back. U.S. Central Command gave an update on the injuries to U.S. service members in the Middle East. 303 U.S. soldiers have been wounded, 273 have returned to duty, and 10 remain seriously injured. 13 American service members have died since the war began. CBS News national security analyst Aaron MacLean joins me now. He is also the host of the School of War podcast. Aaron, thanks so much for being with us. And really want to start off there with the troops because we know thousands have been deployed to the region. And so what are the prospects for ground action?
Right. So negotiations are continuing, but we have 2 Marine Expeditionary Units coming in from the Pacific. We also have elements of the 82nd Airborne flying in from the East Coast of the United States. And I think there are 3 buckets, essentially, of options where you might see these troops employed in limited ground action regarding Iran. The first, of course, is right here in the Strait of Hormuz. The Iranians currently are effectively blocking transit of oil and other goods through the strait unless they specifically approve the ship. So you could imagine a deployment of ground forces as supporting some kind of operation to open that strait again. The second bucket would be to seize facilities that Iran uses to export its own oil or other energy resources. Here, the piece of terrain on everyone's mind is a place called Karg Island, which is a little bit further northwest out in the Persian Gulf. And I think the third group of options are some sort of special operations raid targeting the Iranian nuclear facilities, which are here in the center of the country. Esfahan is the main one, but there are also potential targets at places like Natanz and Fordow.
And that sounds like that would be a pretty intensive operation.
Massive undertaking, potentially one of the largest special operations missions in modern American history if it were to proceed, yes.
You also mentioned the Strait of Hormuz here, which you said remains closed, but it seems some ships are still able to get by. How is that possible?
Yeah, that's right. So the Iranians have opened traffic to ships that they are approving through. No ships connected to the countries that are belligerents opposed to them in this war, but Chinese-controlled ships, Russian-controlled ships. And the way it's working is typically the sea lanes here go right basically dead through the middle of the strait, coming in between the Gulf of Oman over here and the Persian Gulf over here. But the Iranians have essentially opened a second route through the strait that runs up through here between these 2 islands. And this little island right there is getting the reputation as being called the Tehran toll booth. This is Larak Island, where the IRGC is controlling traffic through the strait right now. So basically, you coordinate with the IRGC, potentially some money moves hands, and you can move along this more northerly route. Movement right now down through the south without approval from Iran, pretty perilous.
And then we know that the president just announced this week that he's putting another pause on potentially launching military strikes against Iran's power plants and energy infrastructure. But not all bombing is ceased. So tell us a little bit more about the U.S.-Israeli campaign.
Yeah, there's an intensive air campaign underway as we speak. It's really just a pause, it seems, on the attacks on these power plants. So we've seen the air campaign move from west to east progressively over the course of the last few weeks. In the last 24 hours, you saw targets in a place called Mashhad, very large city in the very far northeastern corner of Iran, which is significant because most of our forces doing the bombing are coming either from the west or from the south, from the ocean. You also saw strikes today by the Israelis on steel plants in the center of the country in the Esfahan area, along with, by the way, some nuclear targets, not the buried highly enriched uranium that would be the target of a special operations raid, but other kinds of targets. There's one thing I want to draw your attention to, though, that I think has probably not gotten enough coverage in the noise of the last several weeks, which is that the Israelis in particular have been mounting an intensive campaign against regime targets in Tehran itself. So this is just a representation of some of the attacks that have struck central Tehran, some of these very large strikes on IRGC headquarters and facilities, but some of these smaller pinpoint strikes on checkpoints of essentially the secret police as they are standing at intersections monitoring and managing the population. So the Israelis, in terms of the Iranian regime, are going hard right down until the clock ends, even if there's going to be some sort of negotiated solution soon.
All right, Aaron MacLean, this really puts everything into perspective. Thank you so much.